Hello, good evening and welcome to the holiday edition of Business Life. Coming up in this edition, Fitch rating still classifies Ghana as a country in debt distress and not able to meet financial obligations despite progress made on debt restructuring. We shall be discussing this assertion by Fitch Solutions shortly. Also in this bulletin, fresh data from banks shows Cedi's depreciation against dollars slows significantly for last month. Plus, government optimistic of hitting the end-of-year revenue target despite negative impact of elections on the economy.
Based on services that it offers to its citizens. So these are some of the things that we are putting in place. Aside the fiscal discipline, we are also putting in place systems and structures and improving these systems and structures.
We have details of these and more lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks so much for your time. I am Pius Kojo Baka, and look now at our stories. Ghana can still be classified as a country that has not been able to meet its financial obligations to its bondholders and is in distress. That's the view of ratings agency Fitch after it assigned selective default status to the country in its latest analysis. There is more in this report.
In the report maintained that as long as Ghana has not moved to settle coupon payments due Eurobond holders in February this year, it does not think that it has to review its old classification of Ghana. It is therefore still waiting for government to finalize the deal with external creditors and make the necessary payments. The ratings agency was projecting that Ghana could have the agreement with Eurobond holders signed in September this year. However, when it comes to the commercial bilateral creditors, it is hoping that things could be done before the end of this year. Fitch also believes that closing the page on these debt restructuring will go a long way to help restore confidence in the economy and the resumption of private capital inflow.
Now, the head of mission at the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, Dr. McBride has urged governments to adopt recommendations from the APRM's Technology Supports Mission on international credit ratings. Now, speaking at the report's launch in Accra, he highlighted the importance of these recommendations in addressing the speculative actions of credit ratings agencies that have negatively impacted Ghana's investor confidence.
Despite Ghana's fiscal challenges, credit rating agencies have amplified these issues. According to the government, in early 2022, their negative speculative actions and media statement contradicted Ghana's actual macroeconomic performance and policy direction, hurting investor confidence. At the launch of the Africa Peer Review Mechanism report on technical support mission on international credit ratings in Accra, head of missions Dr. McBride urged governments to implement the mission's recommendations.
But suffice to say that the findings of this mission were predominantly related to the institutional frameworks for dealing with credit rating agencies and the actions pertaining therefrom. Other key findings, of course, include those relating to the need for coherent policy communication within the country, the different key actors, and timely dissemination of economic data, which is key for these opinions, for the opinions that are issued by these rating agencies. And to encourage the government to consider revising the regulatory framework to ensure that these agencies operate in line with international best practice. I think there is some level of consensus that the way that these agencies operate and conduct themselves on the continent is not entirely the way they do or conduct themselves in other regions of the world, in Europe or the United States, for instance.
Lead expert on international credit ratings, Dr. Mishek Motis, stressed the importance of better domestic preparations for rating review meetings.
For an analyst who is in Paris, where most of the analysts for Africa stays, their ratings are not, even if they are rating Ghana, for instance, their ratings are not deemed to have been issued in Ghana. The rating is deemed to have been issued in Paris. So is the income that is paid by the government of Ghana. If you pay for the rating, you are paying a Paris account. So that rating or that income is deemed to have been earned within the jurisdiction of Paris. So that keeps the rating agencies out of the jurisdiction of regulation, so that even if we know that Ghana formally appealed for against the rating in 2022, but that rating is a non-event because there is no leverage or any platform that appeal is based on. It is at the mercy of the analyst who is involved, or if it's a relationship manager to some extent. But there is no legal basis for that appeal to proceed beyond just a public statement.
One of the key findings from the report was that the government has yet to develop a strategy for the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank to engage with rating agencies on the risks identified in the past reviews. Winston Taki for Joy Business.
Still on ratings, we want to go back to our earlier story where Ghana is still classified as a country that has not been able to meet its financial obligations to its bondholders, and of course is in a debt distress. And this is a position by Fitch ratings agency saying so. And I want to bring in Economist Professor Patrick Esuming for some discussion on this. Thanks so much, Professor Esuming, for joining us on Business Live. Now, Fitch, in its latest report on Ghana, still tagged the country as in relative distress despite the progress being made. Does it come to you as a surprise?
Good evening, viewers. It's not a surprise. I think it's what happens when you are in the position we are in. It's true that we have made progress with the external debt restructuring, but it's not concluded yet. We heard that we had an agreement in principle with the bondholders, but that agreement has not been finalized. So until all of that are finalized and everything now reflects on our books, I think that's where we are.
And what can we do, would you say, we must look at to fast-track the process of getting a good ratings from Fitch in these times?
So I think that, personally, I don't think we should be focusing too much on good ratings. I think we should focus on building or rebuilding our economy, making sure that we complete the debt restructuring and our debt books will look better. And then also continue with the reforms that we are doing to improve public finances. But more importantly, rebuild the economy to be more resilient. When we do those things, ratings will automatically follow. I think if you focus too much on doing things with rating agencies, that will not necessarily be the way to go.
But so far,
we should see rebuilding the economy as a priority. And then once the economy is on a stronger footing, the rating agencies will automatically upgrade that.
All right, so I guess so far, government appears to be on the right track in terms of, seeing some economic recovery in their position.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
I'm saying that so far from what you say, do you think that we are on the right track?
Well, we are on the right track in terms of some relative or reduction in the level of instability, or the macroeconomic environment is less volatile. Now, also in terms of the fiscal side, we've seen that in the first half of the year, the government has been able to keep its books in balance, and we are on the target. But you and I know what has brought us here, what we have done to bring government to balance. The real sector of the economy is still hurting. The private sector is still hurting. Households, especially the middle classes, their incomes have been buffeted by the inflation and related factors. So I think, yes, there's some progress, but that progress has come at a cost. So it's important that we address those underlying matters. And it's also important that we don't mess up any small progress we've made because of the upcoming election.
But do you think that these negative verdicts will hurt our recovery process and, of course, the pace of Ghana's economic recovery?
Not necessarily. I think we've been in this for a long time. I mean, for the better part of 2 years now. And I think while an upgrade will send some positive signal But I think this is where we are. It's really a reflection of where we are. The economy is in real trouble. And I think the ratings are saying as much. So it's not like the ratings were saying something more negative than we anticipated. This is what many would have expected that the ratings would say.
Now, Fitch in the report on Ghana was somehow convinced that government is committed to being prudent with elections-related spending. Does it come to you as a surprise?
Somewhat, a little bit. I think if you look at our history, you shouldn't be too convinced by, words of commitment by our political leaders. I think it's not the first time we've heard government going into elections promising that you'll keep the books in order. But repeatedly, it doesn't happen. So I'm quite surprised that they have, they seem to accept the commitment that the government has made. I still remain unconvinced. I think that it's only a matter of the extent of the slippage, not that there will be slippage. I expect that there will be slippage.
To what extent do you think that the presence of the IMF would ensure that we stick to our fiscal prudence?
Well, the IMF helps. Obviously, we have a program. We have to commit to it. But Cyrus, remember that when we were in IMF number 17, we had an election, and even though we were still, when we were in the IMF number 16, 2016, we were still in an IMF program, we still managed to mess up our books. I think somewhat, this time, some of the expenditure control measures are stronger than we had the last time. And I think the reporting requirements are a little firmer than we had in the previous IMF program. But, politicians will always find ingenious ways of spending that will escape the books onto after some time. So, yes, the IMF program will help, but it is not going to be a panacea to have any slippage.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Patrick Esuming, sharing your thoughts with us here on Business Live. We appreciate it. And while longer on the economy, and the Cedi's depreciation against the dollar slowed significantly for July last month compared to May and June. This is based on the new data picked up from some commercial banks. There is more in this report.
Based on this data that we have seen, the banks put the Cedi rate of depreciation against the dollar at around 1% compared to the 7% in May and 2% in June. The data may again support early argument by the Bank of Ghana governor that the Cedi has started responding to recent development in the economy. The development may also result in what the Bank of Ghana describes as expect a relative stability for the Ghana Cedi in the coming weeks. The local currency has been trading in markets for 15 Ghana Cedis range against the dollar over the past weeks. The Bank of Ghana has also been a little bit active on the market when it comes to dollar supply. It is believed all these developments together with the current happenings on the market that contribute to the Cedi's performance.
So watching the holiday edition of Business Live, we are back with more. Please stay. Hello, welcome back to Business Live. Government has indicated that it has instituted measures to achieve its end-of-year revenue target. There are fears that government may not be able to achieve the 177 million cedis target by December as a result of election-related shocks and its negative impact on the economy. But Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, Abna Sassari, says they have put in place stringent measures to deal with these challenges.
It's called the Emergency Expenditure Management Guidelines for Public Institutions. So that moving forward, we have some guidelines to help us should any of such things arise again in the future, so that we try as much as possible with these guidelines. It will help us, guide us to live within the measured systems that we have.
Because I have this question that if these things have happened in the past, obviously, what is the guarantee that this time around
when you check the
it won't happen again?
General's reports, you have seen a substantial reduction in items done outside GIFMIS. Yes. Consistently, other than the COVID-19 issues, consistently when you check through the Auditor General's reports, you can see that it has reduced drastically transactions done outside GIFMIS. It is part of the agreement that we've had as part of the targets that we've had with the IMF, that as much as possible, we are going to get all institutions, already we have begun by bringing 285 ministries, departments, and agencies that raise their own internally generated funds on GIFMIS, so that we have a view of how much money they raise and how it is spent. We are also working to bring on about 500 more of these institutions and agencies. All of this will help check spending outside the GIFMIS, such that you do not spend what you don't have. So these reforms are very, very important. And as part of the reforms too, we are trying as much as possible to digitalize almost at every point where we collect revenues with the Ghana.gov and all the other things that we're trying to put in place, so that government has a fair view of all revenues that it collects based on services that it offers to its citizens. So these are some of the things that we are putting in place. Aside the fiscal discipline, we are also putting in place systems and structures and improving these systems and structures.
In terms of the gift mix, bringing everybody on board, what are the clear timelines here that you have? Are you working with?
The first one of the 285, and we had up to the first quarter of this year, which we did. And then the 500 we have to the end of the year, and which we are also working. Already we have brought quite a number on board, and we are hoping that before the year ends, we should be able to bring the others on board.
Now, taxes paid by MTN to the government witnessed some significant increase for the first 6 months of the year. This was captured in its financial statement ending June 2024. Georgia Afe tells us more.
Its profit for the first 6 months of this year showed that it paid 3.9 billion Ghana cedis. This actually represents more than 44% jump from the 2.7 billion Ghana cedis that it paid in the same period for last year. According to the telecoms giant, this came from direct and indirect taxes that it paid to government from January to June this year. MTN Net Financials also added that it paid 289 million Ghana cedis in fees and levies, as well as other payments to several government agencies this year. These taxes, according to MTN, represent about 52% of its revenue posted for this year. These payments are coming at a time that concerns have been raised about whether MTN is paying the required taxes to the state, looking at the strong growth in earnings over the past years. Its half-year numbers showed that revenue crossed 8 billion Ghana cedis, whilst profit before tax hit 3.3 billion Ghana cedis. Despite the challenging environment, MTN is optimistic that it would end the year on a good note, with revenue growing above 20% for next year.
The Customs Technical Service Bureau Welfare Association of the Ghana Revenue Authority has organized its second edition of Fitness, Walk and Health Screening event in Accra. The exercise, which was started by the staff or attended by the staff of the GRA, is aimed at encouraging good healthy practices among workers as well as help them bond. There is more in this report.
Walked through some principal streets of Accra through the ministries, led by professional trainers. The staff of the GRA were also taken through some aerobics and health screening. Speaking to Joy Business, the Assistant Commissioner of the Customs Technical Service Bureau, Rosemary Andupaka, said the exercise is also aimed at encouraging unity.
This is a joint activity we've been having with the preventive unit. Unfortunately, my colleague preventive is in Mali. He has to go for a program. But the two of us came together. We have a lot of energy in us. So we came together and then we realized that we only come to work, we close, then we go back home. But then we thought that we have to bring the officers together. So the mindset first is the bonding among officers. We want the officers to bond together so that we get to know each other. You know, when you are together collectively, like they always say that unity, you cannot really break when people are unified.
The Commission General of the GRA, Julie Esiam, disclosed that the initiative was the sole planning of the staff with support from management. She stressed the need to maintain good health to help boost productivity.
Look at what the team has done. I would like to preface my discussion with you by saying that this was not a leadership initiative. This was not a top management initiative. This was a staff initiative. What an amazing initiative. The point is that they have spoken to three themes for this Saturday get-together and a health walk. First of all, the first theme is health. Without a good workforce, where are we all going to go? How are we going to raise revenue?
Touching on recent happenings about Joy FM's expose on smuggling of goods at the port, Ms. Esiam assured that the GRA will continue to work with the media to reduce the canker at the country's borders.
There's always some issues here and there. We have confronted those issues and we continue to confront those issues. I'm sure what you're speaking to is the recent video that is circulating from the Joy expose. We've issued a press statement that an immediate investigation has been launched and we'll get to the bottom of it. But I always say that we also have to be mindful that at the port and even across the borders, we have other stakeholders. So we shouldn't always jump to conclusion that before we investigate that everything is attributed to our customs men and women who mobilize revenue. But we'll look into it and we'll do the investigation. And if there are any premises for that, by all means, there are consequences that will follow.
Finally, before we go, in commemoration of Autism Awareness Month, the Let's Swing for Autism Play with Stephen Golf Tournament has partnered with CFAO Mobility to provide a brand new Mercedes-Benz C180 for its 5th edition of the tournament. Speaking to Joy Business at the launch of the event, marketing communication expert Stephen Onievi stressed the need to foster acceptance of autism spectrum disorder in society without discrimination.
Play with Stephen initiative is geared towards creating awareness, and it will also serve as a platform to raise funds. The tournament brings together golf enthusiasts, corporate partners, celebrities, and media personalities to enjoy a weekend of fun and competition while supporting a noble cause. Stephen Onievi stressed the need to foster acceptance of autism spectrum disorder in society without discrimination.
Okay, so I think there's a philosophy about me. I do brand building initiatives. So I run an advertising agency. That's my job. And for me, the tournament is about bringing my experience, the job I love, which is marketing communications, and putting brands at the heart of it, connecting it with the game I love, which is golf, right? So where Mercedes-Benz comes to play is that there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of global conversation around impact marketing. So basically, how do you market with a sense of responsibility and sustainability? So that's basically how Mercedes-Benz comes to play. So what Mercedes-Benz is doing is supporting the initiative Play with Stephen, that's the golf tournaments to support autism. They're supporting the initiative by putting up a car, a brand new C180 Mercedes-Benz for players that are able to make all-in-one. The first player that is able to make all-in-one on 18 on the main tournament day becomes the owner of the brand new Mercedes-Benz. That's basically what CFAO is doing.
Communications manager for CFAO Ghana, Dennis Gauga, explained the rationale behind the collaboration.
CFAO is supporting the Play with Steve tournament, dubbed Let's Swing for Autism, with a Mercedes-Benz C180 2024 model for the hole-in-one segment of the tournament. We're doing this because we feel it's a bright place to be in terms of sponsorship, and then also we're supporting the Play with Steve Swing for Autism drive to support autism in Ghana. As part of CFAO's UN sustainability goals, or sustainable development goals, of which health and well-being is a part. We feel it connects strongly with our CSR and ESG drive in Ghana. So therefore, we feel it's a very right place to be and a good thing to support as well. So that's why CFA was supporting with a brand new Mercedes-Benz C180 for the hole-in-one golf tournament.
This year's event will be held from Friday, August 23rd to Sunday, August 23rd, 2024 at the Achimota Golf Course in Accra.
Thanks so much for being part of Business Life. I am Pius Kojo. Back. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.